Thanks for joining us today. I'm Nancy Furness, and this is We've Got Issues. I'd just like to start by saying that we are filming on site at the City Centre Library in Kwiwkwetlem, and we thank the library for providing a venue for us to carry out these interviews. I'd also like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of Kwiwkwetlem First Nation. So we thank the Kwiwkwetlem people who continue to live on these lands and to care for the lands and the waters and all that lies above and below. Today I'm joined by Meghan Lahti, who is currently the Mayor of Port Moody. So thank you so much for joining us today, Meghan.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
I'm hoping that we can have a conversation today about something quite specific. I'd like to talk about reconciliation. Port Moody has taken a real leadership role, I think, in putting forward some meaningful action on reconciliation. So we're all aware now, or most of us are aware of the devastating effects that colonialism has had on First Nations. We talk about stolen lands, genocide, sometimes all the horrific abuses that happened in residential schools, and we're still seeing the effects today. Port Moody has done, I think, some really good work, and maybe if you can start us off by talking about something that happened recently in Port Moody called a blanket exercise. Can you tell us what that is and why it was done?
Yes, of course. A blanket exercise is, we talk about reconciliation. It's truth and reconciliation, and the blanket exercise is really the truth part of the reconciliation. It's an opportunity for people that are non-Indigenous to come together and learn about some of the stuff that you've mentioned earlier about colonialism and the impacts that it had. It takes you through a journey where you can it tries to put you in a position where you're actually experiencing it. So it's an experiential opportunity for folks to really gain a better understanding of the impacts of colonialism. For me personally, I've attended 4 blanket exercises, and I will continue every time I have an opportunity. And when we were talking about National Indigenous Peoples Day, I thought it would be an opportunity for us to be able to do this blanket exercise and invite the community down. I'm going to, I guess, take that opportunity every year and try to awesome. Encourage the community and hopefully make it a bigger event so that more and more people will attend. But if you've gone to one, and you were there, I saw you there, so thank you for attending, you will gain something new every time you go. So it's not a one and done kind of thing. So I really look forward to having more in the future.
Well, I have to say it was one of the most powerful experiences that I have ever had. Like, we talk about what happened, but you're actually experiencing it. Yeah. And to be comforted, like, people that were participating were being comforted by the people who have been exposed to all, the atrocities and the aftermath and the ongoing trauma. So it was almost like we're kind of sharing a little bit of that, path forward together.
Yeah, it's really incredible when you sit there with folks from First Nations, Indigenous people who have experienced this. We had an elder there, a knowledge keeper, who actually attended a residential school, and she was so thankful that we were there. So it really goes to show the beauty in this experience, and just the resilience and the beautiful, I guess, ability for them to embrace us and allow us to experience this through their eyes without feeling guilty.
Yeah, and that was one thing they really stressed. This isn't about guilt or shame. This is about, the truth part of it and acknowledging. And, there's somebody who walks around and you're standing on a blanket and he kicks your blanket and makes it smaller and smaller, and it's like, someone at the end said, "Where's the outrage?" Like, I felt outraged and I was angry, and it's just a totally different perspective on things. So yeah. I'm really happy to hear that it'll be happening again. And it was wonderful to see some Port Moody councillors there as well. So, and yourself, initiating all of this. So again, thank you.
It was really important for me to do that, and I, for me personally, I have a real personal sort of affiliation. I have, my family is Indigenous. I have aunts and uncles and nieces and nephews and first cousins, and so I grew up in that world, and so I'm very attached to ensuring that we do the right thing in terms of our path forward and with truth and reconciliation in the city.
I was going to ask you personally why, and I think you just kind of answered that a little bit, so thank you for sharing that. So there's more that's going on in Port Moody. Recently, again at Rocky Point Park, there's something called the Shoreline House Post Project. Can you talk about what that is? And
it's called In the Presence of Ancestors, and so if you've heard our territorial acknowledgement, we acknowledge that we acknowledge that we're on the shared territory of many Indigenous First Nations peoples, including the Tsleil Waututh, Musqueam, Squamish, Kwiwkwetlem, and and Kwiwkwetlem. So we endeavored to work with Tasha Faye Evans, who is a huge advocate who works to advance truth and reconciliation in our community, and she's actually been acknowledged for that through being awarded one of the highest awards in the city, acknowledged for that work that she does. So we're moving forward with this project called the In the Presence of Ancestors, where we are commissioning house posts to be placed throughout the Shoreline Trail. So the first house post will be at Rocky Point Park, and then where we had our blanket exercise, just behind that will be another house post. There are 3 others, one at the head of the inlet, just on the Shoreline Trail, another further along where the lookout is that oversees the old mills, and then the final one is juxtaposed to Rocky Point Park at Old Orchard Park.
So it goes all the way around Shoreline.
All the way around, yeah.
So now people are going to be able to walk and see these house posts as they walk along Shoreline Trail. Whereabouts are you now?
We haven't actually raised any of the house posts for this project, but one of them has been completed, and we did a blessing ceremony 1 year ago in June of 2023 for that one, and that is the main one that was the Tsleil Waututh that is going to go up at Rocky Point Park. The ones that we blessed at the last ceremony just a couple of weeks ago are the ones that will be going up across the inlet at the pier. And that it's 2 posts.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So it's a beautiful carving, and we're still working on 3 more of them. So we'll be proceeding as these get completed. We were hoping to be able to raise one of the posts this year, but it's just not quite the right time.
And important to wait for the right time. And
well, it's about funding, and it's also about coordination.
My heart is full. And I'm sure everybody out there is feeling the same way. I want to thank Tasha Faye for everything that she's done for this project. As we move through, I feel so honored to have been asked to be a witness again for this ceremony. And as we move to place these posts throughout the city, I will carry the learnings that I had from today, and all the love that I felt, the beautiful music, the beautiful stories, and the beautiful people. So my heart is full. Thank you.
No, interesting. So we'll look forward to seeing that progress over the next several years.
Yes, I think it'll take probably 2 or 3 more years before it gets completed. So this isn't, just like truth and reconciliation, it's not something that happens overnight. It's something that takes time and patience.
Well, and I think you raised a really good point, because I've heard this so many times it's not just reconciliation. You can't have reconciliation without truth. So you've done that by doing the blanket exercise, by education, and also the City of Port Moody has a land acknowledgement that's fairly, I don't know what the right word is, robust, respectful, but you acknowledge that you're on the shared territories, and you also use the word unceded.
Yes.
So why is it important to do that land acknowledgement and to include those words?
Well, and we don't use the word territory either. We use the word homelands, which is, a respectful acknowledgement that these were the lands that were inhabited long before colonialism. So Port Moody has a really rich history of Indigenous peoples, and the Tsleil Waututh had a village actually in Port Moody, right where we were for our blanket exercise.
Right, because they're North Vancouver as well, right?
Well,
sort of across.
They are, but they basically inhabited the entire territory, including the head of Burrard Inlet where Port Moody sits. Other First Nations, Indigenous peoples used Port Moody as a seasonal fishing place. So they would come in and they would come in and do their fishing and stay and then leave. So we wanted to acknowledge those who not only lived here permanently, but also those who used Port Moody during the year.
Shared land.
Port Moody had some very significant trading trails, and which is the trail that led from the head of Burrard Inlet, which led to what is now Dudney Trunk.
Right.
Right, and so that entire area was a trading and trading path, a trading trail. So, there's a
rich history.
A lot of history there, and we want to make sure that as we move forward as a city, that we're acknowledging that.
So as a city, you've done some good work, but you also have partners. Like, who do you work with to put forward reconciliation, to make it meaningful?
This is one of those things that you don't really know. You don't know what you don't know. So we really have relied heavily on our Indigenous neighbors, and those include, for the most part, the Tsleil Waututh and the Kwiwkwetlem Nation, as well as Squamish. We are working to develop relationships with the Tsleil Waututh, particularly right off the bat, because they have a rich history here. So we've taken their lead in terms of how to go about doing that. One of the other things that we did as a council when we were first elected was, when we sat down to do our strategic plan, we really wanted to incorporate truth and reconciliation into our plan in a way that would help us incorporate the values into everything that we did. So one of the things that we did with that plan was we made a plan to hire an Indigenous relations manager, which we have done. So in this past few months, we've finally found the right person, and we've hired this individual. So we actually have a department in the city that is dedicated to this, and their role is to make sure that all of the decisions and everything that we do at the city is done through the lens of truth and reconciliation. And that was one of the things that the Kwiwkwetlem and Tsleil Waututh relationship that we built was really signaled during those conversations, that we needed to have that. We needed to have somebody there that was.
You're taking leadership from Indigenous people.
Yeah, we're taking the leadership from them. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, that's really, really great to hear. So it sounds like there are plans moving forward to do more. What can residents do? Like, you have included them in the blanket exercise and other public events and things. Do you have any words for residents how they can maybe, go forward with some meaningful reconciliation as well?
Well, I think that taking part in those opportunities that we give the community in terms of like the blanket exercise and any other, and the blessing ceremony that took place. Were you at that?
No, I had a conflict, but next time I'm going to make sure I'm there.
The community, by attending those types of events, can learn and become part of that experience. And so we just welcome the community to attend those types of events and to support us in the work that we're doing.
Well, I know that even attending the blanket exercise, I learned so much just even the history and what people had gone through, and just hearing from the Indigenous folks that were there sharing their own personal stories, and so to bring that to the community, because it's something that a lot of residents may not be able to do on their own, or just don't have the access to that sort of information or experience by themselves.
Yes, and the other thing that residents can do is in Kwiwkwetlem Park, there is now a partnership with Metro to bring about better, I guess, exposure and connection to the unceded and hereditary homelands of the Tsleil Waututh Nation. Mm-hmm. And that is being done not only with Metro, but it's also being done with the Tsleil Waututh Nation. And that one of those things that we did as a council was we rescinded some bylaws that had restricted those activities to take place. So what they wanted to do was, there was some old cabins there, and there was, I don't know if when you were at the blanket exercise, if you heard my introduction about the bowl house and the history behind it. So we're,
yes, but if you could maybe just
reiterate. There was some history behind how those houses got built, and who it came about because of a murder actually that happened. An Indigenous woman was murdered, and there's more information on our website if anybody wants to go and look at it. But this opportunity to bring about an understanding and a respectful acknowledgement of these,
again, the truth.
These events that happened through working with Metro and the Tsleil Waututh Nation. Belcarra, or Kwiwkwetlem Park, is now going to have an opportunity to take the lands back to their original state, and so that people can see where the village was in what is now known as Belcarra Park, and they can walk along the shoreline and see what that was like for, because it hasn't been an opportunity. People haven't been able to get to that space because it's been
that's right, all the cabins or cottages
it
along
was
there,
kind of privatized, and there was no access. So now we're creating access for the public to connect to these experiences.
Well, thanks for sharing that, because I think a lot of people maybe still aren't aware of what's happening there. So
there will be an interpretation, an interpretive opportunity at the Bowl House where people will get to go in and read about and understand, have a better understanding of what was there before colonialism.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You've done some good work, but there must also be challenges along the way. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about some of those challenges? I know resources are always, an issue, and are there other challenges as well?
Well, resources, you've named it. Resources is a big one, but we do have a commitment to this, so we are putting the money in where it needs to go. But there's also building trust. You have to be able to you can't expect these relationships to just happen. We need to be respectful of how things are done.
And it's a long-term commitment.
It is, and I've said, it's not something that happens overnight, but you need to be patient and in order to build those relationships, and you need to take the time that's needed that's necessary to build that, to build those relationships. A genuine commitment is needed.
And I think relationships are the basis of moving forward.
There's also challenges around, as we've spoken earlier, around education and awareness. So there's a lack of understanding, and so we're continuing to try and bring about that better understanding. And then there's some bureaucracy that we need to navigate through as well. So it's...
Well, and even you had mentioned about changing some, I don't know if it's bylaws or something to make sure that some work in reconciliation could go forward. So there's challenges like time that it takes to do that, and things that, systems that are already in place that you're trying to partially dismantle, and so that you can move forward there. So
yes, we need to also be respectful of the work that's being done around heritage and understanding our history from the colonial perspective as well. So one of the reasons that those bylaws were in place in the first place was because we wanted to save the cottages, right? So it's like how do you balance out the needs to save one type of history for, to be able to sort of rediscover another?
It's a really interesting challenge, that one. And I think it's part of that unlearning and relearning and growing and, just looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Are there any requirements for the municipalities to do work on reconciliation? Like, is there any mandate from the province, or is this work that each municipality can kind of decide whether they want to be engaged or not?
I think it's the latter. I mean, we do have the UNDRIP. We do have the sort of some real good guidelines that have been provided to us, but that is really up to each individual municipality and how they want to embrace that.
Because the province has adopted UNDRIP and DRIPA.
Yes, and so has the city.
Okay,
so not every city does.
Oh, okay.
And for us, I don't think we have a choice. We're in a place where it is very clear that this was an Indigenous encampment. This is where people lived their lives before.
And I think if you're serious about meaningful reconciliation, then it's kind of goes hand in hand with adopting those. What plans do you have going forward? Like, you've done some great stuff, and it sounds like you're planning on doing the blanket exercise, which I'm really happy to hear, because I think the more people that experience that, the deeper the understanding going forward. Is there anything else that's planned going forward?
We'll continue to do the work that we're doing. We'll look to the lead of our Indigenous partners in this, as well as our professional staff, but we'll continue to work with the community. There's way more work to do.
Of course, there's always more that can be done, right?
Yeah.
Where can people find out more if they want to know what Port Moody is doing with respect to reconciliation? Where can they find that information?
Go to our website. You can. There's a few different places on our website, but you'll poke around in there and you'll find lots of information about what we're doing and what's coming up.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and sharing this information with us. I personally feel it's really important, and my gratitude to you for doing that hard work.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I've been speaking with Meghan Lahti, who is the Mayor of Port Moody, and she's been sharing with us some of the good work that the City of Port Moody has been doing with respect to reconciliation.